You have stumbled into a show that they like to call a podcast because they got to call it something. It's Binge-Watchers Podcast with yours truly, Johnny Spoiler. I only spoil the movies that I love. Joined as always by the savage Scream Queen herself,
That's me.
who they anointed as a Scream Cream. I can't say these words.
Queen. It's
hard.
Like
he sold seashells on the seashore. His name was Steve. I just ruined like a perfectly good intro. I was gonna remind them about a story that I told before. Like, Podcast Delivery is a podcast newsletter service, or they send emails about podcasts, and they had featured Jordan, and they had dubbed her in quotes.
Yes,
Scream Queen from Binge-Watchers Podcast.
So I
wasn't making it up. Somebody else gave her the title as well. So
it's official. Yeah.
But I mean, stumbling through what I was trying to explain, I don't know if that makes it better or worse, or even has the same value. Punctuate the end of that sentence. I don't know. Anyway, we're here. And like I was like, oh, the timing of the dropping of this episode falls in line with the Love Day, everybody's favorite cry in a pillow holiday, them Valentine's. And I had read a story. First, I didn't believe it, but then I tracked down the zoo. So supposedly there's a zoo that lets you name a cockroach after your ex, and then they feed it to an animal on Valentine's Day at the zoo. And I was like, okay, there's this story I saw like a handful of times on the internet, and I was like, is this the internet, like, making fun of me pulling my chain? Like, is this some BS, clickbaiter? I looked. The San Antonio Zoo actually does it.
I just love it. I love it. I think that it's a perfect way to like market the anti-Valentine's Day. And I think it's incredible. The fact that you can,
if you're looking for closure, what better way than to
name
ceremonially,
a cockroach
emotionally feed an animal that spiritually represents your ex, and it gets chomped on.
So I have one better. And I had just seen it come across my Instagram page. So I don't know if it's like a local, I guess, nonprofit organization that's doing it, but you can literally name a cat from a catch and release program that gets neutered, because that's what they do on catch and release.
No.
And you can like sponsor a cat being neutered by the name of your ex. So I just thought that was so funny, and I think it's hilarious.
So somehow it's like spiritually or metaphorically, somehow it's like your ex getting neutered or spayed.
Yep, exactly. Wow. So I just thought it was great. You get to name a rescue that then goes to get neutered. So yeah,
man. Is it libel if I say all my exes are crazy? It's not. I would have to slander them by name dropping, right?
Yeah, duh.
Yeah, same. I was like, I have no one to neuter or spay, or I'm like, they're all crazy. So if they're all crazy, it's like they're all normal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. Yeah, have I ever dated anybody on the level? This is a very serious question.
I definitely have a couple of cockroaches in my life.
Well, I think everybody's twisted, and I mean, even you, Jordan, own cats.
It's true.
Even you own cats.
Yeah.
And that's a red flag.
Whoa. Oh, yeah.
If you're just listening, I put my finger in the air to demonstrate what a red flag or a red alarm sounds like. Mm-hmm. Yep. Anyway. And forget about worrying about STDs. Apparently got to worry about bubonic plague. If you're hanging out with cat owners, I had read in Oregon that there's a breakout of the bubonic plague for whatever reason, and they're attributing it to a cat who was named after somebody's ex. That's Steve over there, or Linda. Anyway, so it's really not the cat, which is funny because technically, I mean, we attributed the bubonic plague the last time in the Middle Ages from rodents, but it wasn't actually the rodents. It was the things living on the rodents, fleas or whatever.
Wild.
Yeah. So, hey, but I'll blame the cat.
Why not? I mean, if we're neutering cats and calling them after our exes, then I can definitely say that one's probably responsible for the bubonic plague. But,
what if the cat has like a super cat name, like Spiffy or Patchy, or like what's a cat name?
It would be
Mr. Biggles.
Patchy.
Yeah, Patchy.
It definitely
Was
looks
it a
all like
rescue cat?
disheveled. Yeah.
Let's come on. Is it a purebred, Tommy? Like let's really get down. Let's not be prejudiced against rescue cats, but yeah, Patchy McStuffins from the alleyway.
There you go.
Bubonic plague spreading. And then is it sledding around town? Like, how is it spreading the plague among the other cats?
I guess.
Is it just horn it up in LA, the streets of LA? No, Oregon. Why did I say LA? What's a bit? Oh, Portland. Yeah, Portland's out there.
There you go. Don't be coughing on people, Patchy. Cover your little cat mouth with your elbow if that's a thing.
Anyway, I just announced all of cat owners. All of them.
We're all in a box now. Yeah.
You're all in the bubonic plague box.
If it fits, it sits. Yeah.
Home video headlines. This is kind of interesting. Nicolas Cage might be playing a serial killer in this trippy horror movie called Long Legs. I don't know if you've seen the very viral-esque trailer that they dropped. This movie is very strange.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw any of it.
No.
A24, they make a bunch of weird stuff. This looks like another weird one. And I think it's A24. I mean, I guess somebody could yell at me in the comments if I'm wrong. But it's one of those studios. It's either Neon or A24 or... man, I guess I should have written that down. I wasn't going to mention the studio. But anyway, very cryptic trailers that they dropped on YouTube. And it's you don't really know what's going on exactly. But it has an interesting title. It looks like satanic or cultish or like, I mean, it'll get your true crime blood pumping.
Yeah.
I was trying to say true crime fans, it'll get your blood pumping, and it came out as True Blood. Which is a vampire show.
Vampire show that I love so much. Yeah.
I tried to say a whole sentence and only 2 words came out. True Blood.
Not exactly what you were going for, but you know what? Still a lane that I love.
Yeah. True crime fan. That's going to be this whole episode. Like the words that I'm trying to say are not coming out. Other things are coming out.
You stumbled into a podcast where we just stumble across, all the things.
Mash words together all day.
I love it.
There's a Suits spinoff. So Suits was a show on like USA Network about like a lawyer employing another guy who technically wasn't a lawyer, but he was like a legal eagle, so to speak. And I think that was the whole ruse of the show. Like the main character could get caught. Like if they found out that he was providing the legal advice, then we'd have mistrials left and right. But anyway, it's a drama. There is a law firm and there's centric characters at the law firm or whatever are the other characters. But Suits LA, so they're going to be making that. It's headed into production, which I just thought like, Jordan knows I've been watching that LA Law, that older show on Hulu. So I'm like, oh man, they're just like kind of in a way redoing LA Law, but it Suits LA. There you go. All right, the next story is kind of a weird one. I was still trying to find more stories that were like, Valentine's themed or whatever. And I kept coming across a story that like Keanu Reeves was sued by a delusional stalker back in 2009. And I didn't know it. I never heard the story. I never heard that somebody sued him, alleging that he impregnated her while she was hypnotized. I'm like, this is ludicrous.
It's wild. Yeah.
Insane story. But then like there's like 12 websites reporting it. I'm like, is this really a fact? And I keep digging around and the story said the judge ruled, blah, blah, blah. So like, I guess, I mean, obviously he had nothing to do with it, but he's like, oh, here's a paternity test, free and clear. You know what I mean? But just wild.
Well, and she was suing for like back pay of child support for like her 4 adult children. So I'm like, this is a wild story. It's funny. I had just read that as well. And I don't recall you like sending that my way, but it definitely popped up. And I was like, this is a very interesting story. You could make a movie out of just that whole story,
Well, I mean, so on a quantum level, they say that the past doesn't stay the same, that it actually does change and that time's not a fixed point. And I'm like, what a crazy theory. Like maybe back in 2009, this didn't happen, but then the planes of existence shifted and it did happen. You know what I mean? I'm like, this is wild. Like, it's like when people think of a movie that doesn't exist, But I think that's something else. It's called like Mandela effect or whatever. Because Nelson Mandela, what's the story of that Mandela effect? Is like a group of people have like they're convinced that a different reality existed, or like something was true and then changed. Like, so Nelson Mandela, he's like the president of South Africa or whatever, right? But then I guess they claim, oh no, he died in prison or something. But then there's like one where Sinbad was a genie in a movie, but he never really was, but they claim that he is. Or Berenstain Bears or Berenstain Bears or whatever. Which is funny because that one I'm caught up in because I remembered it was like Berenstain Bears. It's like a series of children's books with a family of bears.
Well, and they had like animated series too.
Oh yeah, they made it. Yeah, they did make a cartoon for a little while. And there's more. There's probably better and more examples out there or whatever. But that's the phenomenon. Which I think we've brought up that phenomenon like 17 times probably in the course of this podcast because it's a fascinating idea, man. Like, if time wasn't moving in one direction, if it was moving in multiple directions at the same time, or something could happen in our present that could change something that happens in 2009, that's a wild idea too.
Yeah.
But this is not the Wild Idea podcast or the Nelson Mandela podcast or Nelson Mandela Effect podcast or Quantum Berenstain Bears podcast. We have usually a movie of the week to talk about. Oh, but wait, actually, I do want to get more science fiction related before we go. I just was going to ask Jordan, have you seen a movie called Mars Attacks?
So I just started it like around the Halloween time, but never finished all the way through. And I mean, obviously the cast is stacked. So it's like, how come I've never come across this before?
Yeah.
And just such a like cool, I guess, vibe. But no, I haven't completed the movie. So
somebody reminded me about it, and then I pulled it out of my DVD stack, and like I even threw it up on the socials. Yeah, I like Mars Attacks. I didn't know it was a card game. It's like trading cards from the 60s.
Wow.
Then they made like this comic book in the 80s or 90s, which I didn't even read any of the comics. I just like know about the Tim Burton movie, right?
Right.
And like yeah, as she said, like it's got Michael
Danny
J. Fox,
DeVito, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, Danny DeVito, Jack Nicholson, Jack Black, Sarah Jessica Parker, Pierce Brosnan, Martin Short, I think he plays the government official that's flirting with the alien in disguise. Or maybe it's a different actor. Anyway, but there's a bunch of people in there. And that's literally what it's about. Mars Attacks. But the aliens are cool. They're like, they have skull faces, but then they have these giant extended brains, right? Like the big head alien theory. And but they can't breathe in our oxygen. They have these like masks on the whole time. Anyway, I just wanted to sidetrack. I'm going to sidetrack the whole 45 minutes that we're here. We're never getting to tonight's movie. Just kidding. Tonight's movie is called White of the Eye. Basically, a stereo salesman is accused of being a serial killer in an Arizona town. It's Globe, Arizona, which is one of the maybe bigger but still isolated communities. I don't know. And then what else is going on? Oh, and there's like a love triangle at the center of it all. So there's like, I don't really know the community of Globe that well, but this movie suggests that this is a place where people go to let their dreams die, and then they get stuck there, and then they live there. And so like, there's a couple literally going cross country or something, but then because she hooks up with the dude, she marries the dude, and the other dude goes to jail. I don't know. The other dude is gone for like 20 years and then comes back, and he's like a vagabond at that point. Like on the way out through the desert, they flash back to like the late 70s or early 80s or whatever, and the girl's with this guy, and he's like he looks like a disco guy from like New York or something, and they're just passing through him, and the guy fixes their radio, but then because he hooks up with the girl decides to stay with the radio guy or stereo guy, and then like that's it. But Stereo Man is played by David Keith, who you might know is the dad from Firestarter, among other things. But you must recognize Kathy Moriarty from one of your favorite movies.
My favorite!
But she's much younger, so I didn't know if you were going to catch it or not.
Yeah, of course, I caught it right away. She's got such an iconic voice, and I know I get shit from you all the time about Casper, but let me tell you,
because Kathy Moriarty plays the villain in Casper.
She's
but
so
she's also
good.
the wife in Raging Bull, and she's also in Copland, which is like a movie that I like a lot. But she's mostly known for when she's older, like in her career. So she's like young and svelte and sweaty in this movie. Couple steamy scenes.
Couple of steamy scenes,
Tell you
for
what.
sure.
The jumping back and forth between present day and how the three of them met and hung out is a little jumbled and confusing. But I'll say that for the rating section. Okay,
I think that's perfect.
I got stuff to say.
So cool. Me too. I think it means it's time for Savage Stats. I've got a few of them here for you. Of course, you did mention one, the climactic chase sequence with the two vehicles towards the end of the movie was shot in Globe, Arizona, and it was an actual abandoned copper mine. Very cool scene, though. You've got, kind of these half-made structures. You've got this massive copper mine as well, and it's a pretty wild, car chase sequence. What I found really interesting was, according to Kathy Moriarty, Donald Cammell was so attentive to the dialogue that neither her or David Keith were allowed to do any sort of ad lib during their scenes. Moriarty has spoken of the difficulty that she had with it at first, because it was the first time ever that a director hadn't allowed her to improvise. So she had to they were required to stick very much to the actual dialogue script. I could see how that would be a little difficult, not being able to kind of like riff a little bit or free flow, but sticking to,
See, I didn't know there was any script involved in this movie. So for you, that I have to give the actors a lot more credit now, having said that, because dang, the actor made them stick to the lines of the script. No room for ad-libbing. Well, the script doesn't seem that it doesn't feel very structured to me. So the fact that they couldn't deviate from their lines is really kind of mind-boggling. But anyway, I'll gripe later.
Yeah. Okay, so a cool thing was that the score of this film was done by Nick Mason, who is one of the founding members of Pink Floyd. This was one of his only or non-Pink Floyd associated productions that he's done. So that's pretty cool. And then...
And the soundtrack is not Pink Floyd-esque at all. So you wouldn't know.
Yeah. Which makes sense why it's maybe one of his only projects that he did.
They tried to give it a Native American vibe. They got the drums and the flutes.
Yeah. I mean, it takes place, in Arizona, or is supposed to
set the setting.
Yeah. But the opening scene, the brutal opening murder scene where the housewife is, of course, I think she's strangled to death, uses a staggering total of 55 shots, and this sequence lasts about 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I would assume that that's a lot of shots in order to compromise that, or to compose that first initial murder scene right out of the gate. So that's what we got for stats today.
Oh, see, I thought there was going to be a fact about the eyeballs. I mean, we stare at so many eyeballs. It's like the metaphor of the name of the movie is White of the Eye, which, according to the one character, the cockled says at one point that he has Apache blood, and it's supposed to be some kind of phrase in Apache when you get cockled. I don't know. He's using it to describe when you kind of seduce somebody with the power of your eyes or your voice, or you have some kind of mystical power to suggestion almost. It's funny, we mentioned hypnosis earlier in relation to a lawsuit with a star, but now we're talking about how in this movie it's the power to influence somebody is what the one guy attributes for why he ends up being a cockled.
Well, I think what it's also referring to is like moments of battle because, you have the main character, Paul, who, you know, does his thing. And it's by having that sort of altercation close enough and in the physical proximity of somebody where you can see the whites of their eyes.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, you know, it is interesting. There are a lot of eyeballs.
They can't get rid of the eye metaphors, and yet, like, they're I can't think of his first name, but Fulci, the Italian horror filmmaker, loves doing stuff to eyeballs, but they usually get mangled, mutilated, destroyed, sliced.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for the extreme close-ups of eyeballs in those movies. In this movie, we don't know if we're looking from the killer's perspective, the victim's perspectives. At one point, it suggests the killer's perspectives because we're stalking through the hallways, kind of like point of view shots or whatever. And obviously, they wait till the last possible minute to reveal the killer. But other than that, they don't really use the eyeballs for anything. It just stays on a metaphorical level. What was the point I was making? Oh, I thought they were gonna really bring it home and like destroy an eyeball or something. I guess not. They're not gonna take
Yeah,
after
but
the Italian horror filmmaker.
yeah, you are right though. Like you don't know like whose eyeballs they belong to. Like it's
Yeah,
just like
it's still
flashing
confusing.
eyeballs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's not consistent. We don't know. Because at one point it is the victim's eyes, and at one point it is the killer's eyes. It goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Hey, movie fans, you can try out Stars. We got a Stars affiliate code. If you want to watch a bunch of, I'm sure there's more eyeball movies to find in Stars. You can go watch Stars with our little code. It'll be in the podcast notes. Otherwise, we're going to talk about our favorite bits from Why to the Eye. In this podcast that you're already listening to, congratulations, we're here with Jordan's favorite bits. What do you got?
I noted a couple of things that made me incredibly unhinged.
It actually made you squirm uncomfortable?
Yes, like when the detective washes his hands in the toilet water.
So
Do
it
you
was the
recall that?
toilet. I thought it was
Yes.
angling to the sink, but he was just looking.
No.
He was just looking for water.
Well, looking
So
for
what does that
water to
suggest to you?
wash.
That they're incompetent detectives? Like,
I had to
or
rewind. I was like, did he just wash his hands in the toilet water? Like, because I think the purpose was because there was blood in the shower.
everywhere
There was
else.
blood everywhere
Blood in the
else. There's
sink,
blood in the sink,
shower,
blood in the kitchen.
But I got a clean source of water right here in the toilet.
And washes his hands in the toilet bowl. And so that I was like,
to be fair, it did have that blue soap. That what is it? The 2,000 dial flushes or whatever. What is it called?
I don't think that was invented back then, but whatever. Like
Right.
it was so gross. I was like, that made me incredibly unhinged. And then there's also the like officer who's flossing his teeth in the mirror, and you can just like see
at the crime scene. I didn't catch that.
It was like they were
the
Paul
police mirror
and Joan. No, Paul and Joan have a friend over, and he's like just like a lower level officer. I don't know really what the context
they're
was.
friends with the local police, the sheriff and the deputy. Yeah, so it's the deputy that likes the sunsets. Yeah.
And he's like goes to like I don't know.
Oh, so the deputy displays really strange behavior. He like powdering his armpits with her makeup. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like in there flossing his teeth, and you can see the stuff like splattering all over the mirror. There was just like a lot of little things that I had seen that I was like, what is this movie about? And another piece of that was my favorite.
I'm not even sure. I've watched it now. I'm still not even sure what this movie's about.
I know.
Can't
same.
really tell you.
Well, and like it started off like right off the bat too with like unhinged stuff. I would say my favorite scene really was the initial like murder scene because it starts off really weird, right? He's like stalking her, and then she goes to look at like her meat that's in a marinade, and one of the goldfish was put inside the marinade. And I don't know, it just like started there. There's all this color and blood and water from flowers, and it just was kind of a wild like start to the scene, but it like went right into the unhingedness, and I was like, what are we watching? And yeah, that's kind of some of my favorite bits. It was just kind of a little bit of a skin
How about
crawler in that sense.
The bored housewife who becomes like victim 4 or something like that? She like keeps breaking her stereo, so he has to come over with his toolkit and fix it. I was like, oh, dear Penthouse letters.
So funny.
Kids, if you don't know what Penthouse is, your parents do. Go ask them right now what Penthouse is. Anyway, for anyone who's younger than 40, 30, 20, I don't know. You've probably heard it in a bunch of movies. It's a magazine. Yeah. Before you could get things clips on your phone for free, you had to buy magazines.
Yes, you'd get a subscription, and
people would tell their sexy stories. They would write Dear Penthouse forums, and they would tell all their sexy stories. And this part of the movie is literally a Penthouse forum letter. And no conflict there, but I guess like they're all cheaters.
Yeah.
Like she ditched the boyfriend who was trying to drive from New York to LA, stayed with the stereo man, and then he apparently hooks up with all his stereo clients that happen to be lonely housewives living in Globe when their salesman husbands are gone to Phoenix or something. You know what I mean? Like who knows? My favorite bit though is when the lady gets wrapped up in the carpet with like zip ties, but then he bounces her into the tub.
Yes.
But then he holds up a mirror so she can. So he, I mean, if we're gonna go with eye metaphors, he like the killer shows the victim her own face as she's drowning in the tub, and I thought like, wow, what an elaborate horror movie thing to do.
Yeah.
Get your bloodlust running right there. Get you pretty hot for it, and like.
It's pretty wild.
We still don't know who the killer is at that point, and that's like a third of the way in the movie, maybe. But the movie's so disjointed with its flashbacks, like trying to like. It uses the flashbacks too heavy because like there's no character development except for in the flashbacks to try to make us care one way or the other about the characters. But then the movie takes like turns into Rambo at one point. Like both the killer is suddenly stacked with a personal arsenal that you might see in Rambo. I like his war paint because they were trying to keep the same whatever mystique that they had, going.
The little girl Danielle was pretty cute too when she finds her mom like locked up in the attic and she crawls up there and she says, "Mom, Dad is wearing a bunch of hot dogs because he's strapped, with all the dynamite." And it's just like I loved the little ballsy girl.
Well, the little girl's like out to lunch. Like the more the movie goes on, I guess there's like something wrong with the little girl. Like she's not all there. But
serial killer for a father.
But okay, so I'm not. It's not a spoiler alert because I don't like the movie enough to say here's the spoiler for the evening. It's just, I mean, God, I'm bleeding into ratings now. Okay, so I like the war paint on his face. I like that one thing with the bathtub sequence, and our ratings go like this: binge now. You got to put it at the top of your playlist. Watch it now. Binge later, get to it eventually, but it's not something that's so exciting or we're so passionate about it. You got to play it right now or like spend the rest of your evening watching it. And then binge never, which Jordan continues to argue that it doesn't exist. And I understand from a philosophical point, but she's saying you will even seek out the bad movies just to have the experience. And I get it. However, binge never means don't waste your 2 hours or 90 minutes. You can't get the time back. You've wasted it. I guess I'll just go into my points. And it's obvious. If somebody's been listening to the whole episode of long form content with us here, if you've been listening to the whole ride so far, I think you can tell by the tone of my voice, I don't like this movie very much. So, and it's a first time watch. I should have put a disclaimer at the beginning. Like usually there's some research done. I had replaced another movie in the lineup with this movie because I like David Keith. But I don't want David Keith to be a murderer. And then it technically goes off its hinges. Like when he's covered in dynamite and bandoleros. I think they're called bandoleros when you wear a bunch of ammo on like a belt but across your chest. So he's got like 3 or 4 rings of ammo, 3 pistols, and some kind of automatic weapon. But then he kills the family dog. He's shooting at his little girl. Then he's going after the wife. And then the hermit ex-con boyfriend, the cuckold, shows up. He's wrapped in a Afghan blanket, which is like just a style of quilt or whatever. But again, still has the Southwest motif. You know what I mean? Like the same thing with the music and the setting and the metaphors. The motif's right into the blanket, and he's like been living at the abandoned work site. As Jordan said, in real life, it's like a former copper mine. But he's got like a freaking the gun that's usually attached to the back of an army jeep or something, like a 50 caliber like rifle, machine gun, and he's gonna use it on the serial killer. So now we're not even in the realm of serial killer movies anymore, because these aren't the types of weapons that serial murderers typically use, according to their FBI profiles or any of the movies that we've seen.
Well, even like his, like if we're talking about like serial killer stuff, right? Typically they have like a he does the same thing for every one of his kills. And so now at the very end, he's pivoting to all this ammunition and stuff.
Well, I would
like,
argue
where does it come from?
Well, I think the kills aren't even that consistent, actually. Like, because you mentioned, like, in the beginning, he's playing with a pet at one of the things. And then, like, he body slams the girl to knock her out to put her in the tub. He doesn't use the ties, I don't think, anywhere else.
You're right. I guess it's like there's strangulation, then there's also drowning. It's kind of,
so there's no there's no pattern, right? And then at one point the movie like is trying to like MacGuffin you or red herring you or whatever they say in mystery novels or like true crime movies. You tell me what the terms are, but like the Cockled's tires. I'm calling them that because I don't know the names. Jordan knows the names in this movie. I don't know any of the names. So Stereo Man, they think he's a serial killer because of the size of the tires on his truck, and only 4 people in Arizona have these tires, so he's on their list of suspects. The Cockled also has the tires on his repair truck or whatever, because the movie suggests that he's like working at an auto body shop next to a motel. Unclear, because he's wearing a jumpsuit and there's a auto body shop and a motel in one scene, and it looks like a service truck that he's driving around in. And the movie zooms in on the tire, like, haha, who's doing the killing, you know? But like going to like attacking your own family, like there's that famous American serial killer BTK or whatever. Mm-hmm. He's like a family man, like a regular dude. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like, and then gets caught, and like his thing was like pretty ritual, but he had like a whole family life. So the movie deviating, because then like you're thinking like, what do we take away from here? Is it about the love affair? Which actually, the most twisted but most serious part is like the fact that she still loves him
at the end.
At the end,
so wild.
Yeah, dude, like, man, yeah. And then he like has a moment where he's also talking to her like, oh yeah, like this is like they could just go home after that and have freaking, like, I don't know, they could go home and have dinner. you know what I mean? Like
resume their normal life. Yeah. After exactly, he's trying to like blow her up all the way down to the core of the earth and then into the stratosphere. It's like, I don't know.
But wild. If they had managed not to wound and maim each other, they could just go back and like, turn on the TV, watch the football game or whatever. Yeah, nothing happened. Nothing's happened. Yeah.
Weird.
Cook actual hot dogs for the daughter and just move on the next day. Mm. However, in the theme of Valentine's, I mean, relationships are kind of like that. Like you can take it all the way there to an 11, and then like you're just watching like I don't know, Modern Family reruns or something. You know what I mean? like that's how it is, folks. Anyway, instead of letting like any accident you can walk away from, like any relationship you can walk away from. Dang.
So what are you gonna rate it?
Yeah, those are the 3 reasons. I'm gonna say binge never, because I don't want to see David Keith being the killer. Technically, it's just poorly edited. Like the pacing of the movie itself, like it's not consistent enough on a technical level. And then you say like they had to say the words verbatim. Is it really that great of a script to begin with then? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem to be like that Shakespeare. I mean, the best acting is when she still loves him, and you're just like, what the hell?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, the stuff with the little girl at home was a little inconsistent, but then like you don't want her to get shot, but then like he shoots his own dog, which is like, come on, man. And then he says some wild shit when he's chasing her. He says some wild things that are like just wild. And then in the flashback, he kisses the other guy. Well,
Oh
first he
yeah.
drinks the blood of the deer, which is fine. That's ceremonial, whatever. We're trying to establish that he drinks the blood of his victims or whatever, or absorbs the power of the animal he just killed. So we're getting to that real primal level, right? But then he kisses the guy, and the guy's like, "What's happening?" you know what I mean? The guy looks at him like, "Where are we taking this?"
I completely forgot about that. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was a binge never for me too. I literally was like, the whole time I was like, what is happening in this movie? I genuinely don't know what's going on in this movie. And so that was really hard to kind of like follow along. It's like, okay, there's I'm like, is it about murders or is it about something else? I don't really know.
Yeah.
And then it was. So yeah, no, it was a binge never for sure. I don't know if it would be different if I watched it a second time or would I feel the same, you
No, I
know?
don't think you can watch this movie again.
I think you're right about that.
You want to
So,
like David Keith so much, and then you're just like, is the movie just going to prove that he's the one who did it? And like, he's whatever, I mean, like, and then part of you, like, it's really funny. You ever watch, like, I don't, it was like a joke in a movie. It was either a joke in a movie or a joke online or a joke in a cartoon. I don't remember. I can't remember the source material, but the bottom line, somebody said like, "Oh, I love horror movies when everybody's getting along, everybody's friends, everyone's having a good time right before everybody, you know what I mean, right before bad things happen." Like, then the specific knowledge about all the stereo equipment was really fascinating. But the movie's not about stereo equipment.
right.
You
And you're
know what
like,
I mean?
if only the movie was about that,
Just
but
about
it
a
wasn't.
stereo guy that bangs housewives and knows a lot about these weird stereo components. Like,
Yeah.
dang.
Oh, man.
Oh, I made comments the other day about this Percy Jackson show, and my
Mhm.
point was simply that they didn't invest in the CGI, and that the CGI takes you out of the story, and so you can't suspend your disbelief to believe in the fantastical things that are supposed to be on the screen,
Yeah.
i.e., the monsters, the animated characters that are interacting with the real people. And Wilson on TikTok said, "You can't fault them for a low budget. CGI is expensive." When I had read this on TikTok, I thought for a second, "Oh, I'm gonna immediately reply. I'm gonna reply to Wilson and be like, I can fault them for a bad budget because it's freaking Disney. They have the biggest budgets of all the TV shows on television,
Right.
or
True.
and the internet. And then like, and CGI is expensive. Like, even if that were true that CGI is expensive, they could have just employed people to build the things, and so we'd have more people employed and less fake stuff." But I was like, his response means he doesn't understand what I'm saying. Like, he doesn't get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can't fault them for having a low budget. Like, I don't know who's assigning budgets, and I don't think the budget is very low. Like, those productions are expensive anyway. And then the CGI, it would suck to think that we're spending so much money on it when it looks that horrible. Like, let's spend the money somewhere else, is what I'm saying.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, and it's like if the money's going towards those resources in the first place, you got to just do it right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, you can fault them for having a bad
Right.
budget and poor CGI because they've allocated so much money for
Yeah.
that specific purpose, and it still sucks. Then, what are you gonna do?
Do it right or pay the price,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, hmm.
Everybody just likes it when I'm PG, and all my criticism of movies and TV is just so nice. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Then when I actually say something like, "Hey guys, I love magical creatures, and I just don't believe the magical creatures in this show." Anyway. If you watch something that's not the movie of the week, do you have anything you want to share with the audience?
We're watching some old stuff, just watching
Mhm.
like the old Jurassic Park. We talked about Jurassic Park a
Nice.
couple weeks ago on
Yeah.
on this, and yeah, we watched just like the original, the first one.
Are you gonna do the
That was
original
good.
3? Are you gonna get into
I love
Lost
the
World and then the third one?
Yeah, I love the third one. I love it when they bring back Sam Neill and they're in
Yeah.
like the whole kind of like bird cage, if you will, for the pterodactyls. It was like that was like a highlight for me growing up as a kid. So yeah, just watching some fun old things with good looking dinosaurs for it being 2024 now, and those movies being done in what, the 90s. So I'll take it. Yeah.
Did I already mention that the original Ninja Turtles was on Paramount Plus?
I don't think so.
Okay, so anyway, if you want to watch the late 80s, early 90s, the original Ninja Turtles cartoon, it's on Paramount Plus. Oh, and then Queenpins, that's a movie I told you about like maybe 6 months ago, and it had like disappeared off the network that made it. And then it was like nowhere to be found, but it's Kristen, again, with tonight's words, Kristen Bell and Paul Walter Hauser and Vince Vaughn. Queenpins is about like these coupon ladies that figure out how to get the coupons from where they're manufactured and make an unlimited amount of copies, so they become like cartel bosses in a way.
Interesting.
And it's
very cool.
Super entertaining, and it popped up on Netflix. So
that's a good cast too, right there. So
like
yeah,
that movie, awesome. I want Jordan's take on that one. Then I was debating whether or not for Valentine's if we're going to watch this movie called Sea of Love, which has Al Pacino. I might have mentioned this a couple episodes ago. I don't know if I actually brought this up or not. Maybe I did. But Sea of Love has Al Pacino, Ellen Barkin, and John Goodman. And they're trying to figure out if she is a murderer because all these dates keep dying, like men that post these ads. Instead of talking about just penthouse letters tonight, we can get some other news going. People, instead of Tinder, had to actually print ads in magazines and newspapers to go on dates. That was the dating app of 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever. You'd post single ads and then go on blind dates. And so somebody's killing all the blind dates in this movie. Why didn't I select it for this? Maybe because we watched Wishmaster instead. I don't know. Yeah, Sea of Love might show up somewhere in one of our podcasts one day. Who knows for sure?
Netflix just dropped another like true crime like episode. It's a documentary, but it's called like I think it's Lover Killer Stalker or something, but it sounds
it's literally the real life version of Sea of Love.
What you just said. Yeah, exactly.
This guy, that's probably why Sea of Love was in their catalog, because when they release a movie, they get relatable content.
They kind of have like tandem stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Or
so
when
that
they
makes
remake
sense.
something, they'll throw the original on there or whatever. So there is a brand new movie. I almost watched it the other day. It's like that. It's like a guy goes on a date. She turns out to be a stalker, and then she wrecks his life, for I don't know how long. Also described as marriage in the dictionary. What's a dictionary? Kids, there used to be these books that told you how words were spelled. It was filled with words. They told you what the words were about. I mean, I'm sure there's an app. There's probably dictionary. There is dictionary.com, and I think they probably have an app for it. But stick around. We'll come back with like more podcasts. And I just realized now that I'm about to play the outro song that I never even played
the intro.
The music that is the intro. Well, I don't know what to do about that. Ugh, I'll figure it out. Maybe that we'll have to develop that as a rule where you're just like, John, shut up. Play the theme song. John, shut up. You haven't played the theme song. You're already in headlines. Oh shit, we're already in favorite bits.
Like a theme song, a safe word or something. Theme song safe word. I got to figure out something where I can be like, alert. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if you say something like, before you spoil anything more, John, whatever.
Slowly rolled speed racer. Yeah. Get the intro video rocking and rolling. Something. We'll figure it out.
Definitely won't be hanging out in Globe, Arizona anytime soon.
No.
Just because the movie doesn't, suggest that it's a tourist attraction.
No. I love that it does say that it's a luxurious in the like synopsis, it's like a luxury. I'm like, was it a luxury community? I don't know about that. Like even the synopsis is all confusing. So
I forgot to mention that the movie taught us that a country boy can't survive because they were playing that song as well. But she was driving the car, so it's not like they didn't give her a country girl song. It was Country Boy Can't Survive. Anyway. Then she popped his tires.
She did do that.
The only evidence that he was the serial killer in the first place. Tires.
Oh, true. Full circle.